All right, let's jump right into this Big Ten matchup. I've got a ton of notes here for Illinois versus Iowa on February 25th.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one for sure.
You sent over some awesome previews and predictions and even like some deep statistical dives. We're going to figure out not just who wins, but like what are their hidden strengths, what are their weaknesses, any interesting player backstories,
Hmm.
and maybe some controversial predictions.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is the sources you sent paint a picture of two really different styles of teams.
I like that. Set the scene for us.
Like, imagine this. Tuesday night, the lights are bright at the State Farm Center in Champaign. Illinois wants to snap a 3-game losing streak. They're playing Iowa. High-scoring team loves those threes.
Wait, Illinois is on a losing streak at home. That's got to hurt. But they're still favored by 9.5 points. What's the deal there?
Rebounding, that's the thing. Illinois averages 45.87 boards per game, the best in the nation. It's not just one player either. Their coach has built this system where, like, every player boxes out.
So they control the boards. But Iowa's offense, they're all about the three-pointer.
They love it. They shoot 40.4% from beyond the arc. And they're led by Josh Dix. He actually dropped 7 threes in a single game against Nebraska.
Wow. Okay, but was that like, is Dix that good, or was Nebraska's perimeter D just weak that night?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's something to keep an eye on during the matchup.
Okay, I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
So Illinois is like the rebounding king, and Iowa's the three-point assassin.
Yeah.
Anything else we should watch for?
One source, Pick Dogs, actually thinks that Iowa might cover the spread even though they're the underdog. They say that Illinois has been struggling, especially on defense.
Really?
Yeah, they've had some high-scoring losses to Duke and Wisconsin, which is kind of weird for a team that's known for defense.
Interesting. So Pick Dogs thinks Illinois' defense might be cracking under pressure. That's a bold statement.
It is, and it makes you think, can their rebounding be enough to beat Iowa? Or will Iowa exploit those defensive weaknesses?
Okay, I'm definitely hyped for this game. Clash of styles. Home team trying to redeem themselves, and underdog wants the upset. Before we move on, tell me about this Kasparas Jakucionis guy on Illinois. He's on that Naismith watch list, right? Player of the year?
He is, and he's interesting. 16.43 points per game and 6 assists. Scores and creates for others. He was actually born in Lithuania and didn't start playing basketball till he was 12.
Whoa, late start. And now he's a top player in college basketball. That's wild.
Speaks to his dedication.
I am even more excited to see him play now. All right, so we've got the basics down. Illinois, the rebounding powerhouse. Iowa, the three-point shooters. You sent over some cool historical data and player stats. I feel like that could give us some insight into what we'll see tonight.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that stood out to me from the stuff you sent was how Illinois dominated Iowa in their last matchup. It was 73-61 back in March 2024, but things have changed a bit.
How so? Like, did they lose some key players or something?
It's not just that. If you look at the stats, Illinois has struggled more this season against tough opponents. Like that Duke game, they lost by 43 points. Brutal. And there's a pattern. 21-point loss to Wisconsin, 14 to Michigan State. All really competitive teams.
So they're beatable, especially against teams who can really challenge them physically and strategically. What about Iowa? Have they shown they can pull off an upset?
Actually, yeah. They beat Washington recently on the road, too, 85-79. And get this, they were down at halftime, fought back to win it.
So they're resilient. That's a good sign for Iowa fans. But you mentioned that rebounding advantage for Illinois. Can Iowa really compete there?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. Remember Payton Sandfort, the guy I mentioned who could be key in limiting Tomislav Avizic's impact on the boards. He's got a real knack for offensive rebounds.
So even if Illinois dominates the boards overall, Iowa could still get those second-chance points with offensive rebounds. And then if those lead to three-pointers...
Right. That could be a big problem for Illinois. Oh, and another stat that jumped out at me. Free throw percentage. Iowa shoots a lower percentage from the free throw line compared to Illinois.
So if it's a close game at the end, and it very well could be, those missed free throws could really come back to bite Iowa. Every point matters when it's tight.
No doubt about it. And speaking of guys who could make a difference, there's one player on Iowa you might not think of as a key factor, but he could be a real X factor tonight.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Who are we talking about?
Drew Thelwell. He just scored his 1,000th career point, so he's got that offensive consistency. But here's the thing. He's also a defensive menace. Averages like 2.33 steals per game.
Wow, that's a lot of steals. And against a team like Illinois that really depends on their point guard, like you said, that could throw their whole offense off.
Exactly. It's those unexpected contributions, the things you don't always see coming, that can really swing a game. Now, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about fatigue.
Fatigue. I wouldn't think that would be a big deal this early in the season.
Well, think about it. Both teams have had some tough games lately, especially Illinois with those losses. Iowa's had to grind out some close wins, too. Fatigue leads to mistakes, missed shots, all that. Could definitely be a factor, especially in the second half.
So the team that manages their energy better, makes those smart decisions when they're tired, they might have the edge down the stretch. It's a mental game just as much as physical.
Exactly. And this is where coaching comes in, right? Who makes the right substitutions, keeps guys fresh, adapts to the situation. It's like a chess match between the coaches.
Okay, this is making me even more pumped for this game. But before we wrap up this part, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier.
What's that?
You said that Illinois likes that slower, more physical style, while Iowa is all about running and gunning in those threes. It seems like a real clash of styles. What do you think? How will that play out?
That's the question, isn't it? If Illinois can slow things down, limit Iowa's possessions, make them play that half-court game, that would help them. But if Iowa can speed things up, force turnovers, get some easy baskets in transition, they might be able to neutralize that size advantage that Illinois has.
So whoever controls the tempo could really be the deciding factor, like two different philosophies of basketball going head-to-head.
Exactly. And a good illustration of that is turnovers. Iowa's style, that fast-paced, high-risk style, can sometimes lead to more turnovers.
Yeah, and against a team like Illinois that loves to play defense and capitalize on mistakes, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
So Iowa wants to play fast, but they got to be careful not to be careless.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
All right, so we've got individual matchups, these interesting stats, the coaching battle, and this clash of styles. Anything else we should be thinking about before we wrap this part up?
Can't forget about the home crowd.
Oh yeah, the State Farm Center. Illinois fans get loud, they're passionate. Must be intimidating.
Huge advantage for Illinois. That energy, the noise, can really lift the home team up and rattle the visitors. But sometimes that pressure can backfire.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Sometimes playing at home in front of all those fans, it makes you nervous, you know? They try to do too much, force things, make mistakes.
So the home court advantage can be a double-edged sword. Will be interesting to see how they both handle it.
Definitely. And that leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive.
Let's do it. I'm ready to see what else these sources have for us. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. That Illinois-Iowa game, wow, what a game.
It was intense, huh? A real back-and-forth battle, down to the wire.
So before we get into the details, I'm curious. How'd our pregame analysis hold up? We had those different predictions from the sources.
Well, Bleacher Nation said Illinois would win 85-75. Big Dogs thought Iowa might cover. Final score was 88-83. Illinois wins, but only by 5.
So no one nailed it exactly, but Big Dogs was closer for sure. Iowa definitely kept it close, like they said.
And you know what's cool is that both predictions kind of captured elements of the game. Illinois won, they used their strengths, but Iowa pushed them, exploited some of those weaknesses we talked about.
It was a clash of styles we discussed, right?
Yeah.
Illinois wanted to slow it down and Iowa wanted to run and gun.
Exactly. And there were definitely moments where each team's style was dictating the game. Like early in the second half when Josh Dix hit those 3 straight threes for Iowa, the sources you sent really highlighted how he can just get hot like that.
Oh yeah, that was a turning point. Every time it felt like Illinois was going to close the gap, Dix would hit another 3, kept him at bay.
He was in the zone. But Illinois, you got to give them credit. They showed resilience. Tightened up their D, got those key stops, and slowly they chipped away at the lead.
And that's when Kasparas Jakucionis took over. Those last few minutes were his.
He was clutch, hitting big shots, finding the open man, even had some big defensive plays. True leadership, just what Illinois needed.
You know, we talked about his story earlier. Didn't start playing until he was 12. And to see him dominate like that on a big stage, it's amazing.
It really is. Shows the power of hard work. And, you know, it highlights another takeaway from this game. Mental toughness. Iowa had some great moments, but they couldn't quite keep it going under pressure.
Yeah, I agree. Every time Iowa made a run, Illinois answered back with a big play or a stop on D.
And that's the difference, right, between a good team and a championship team. Staying calm, making the right plays under pressure, executing.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners?
Well, Illinois got the W, but both teams showed us something. Illinois showed they can bounce back. Iowa showed they can hang with the best.
And it all happened within this really interesting clash of styles. Proof that there's no one way to be successful in basketball.
And that's what makes it fun, right? Unpredictable, strategic, those moments of brilliance.
You know, as we wrap up here, I keep thinking back to what you said about the mental game.
Oh, yeah. The mental toughness part.
Yeah. And I think it applies to more than just basketball. Life throws you curveballs, you know. Things go wrong, and it's all about how you respond that matters.
Couldn't agree more. Illinois, facing adversity, fighting back from that losing streak, they had that grit. It's a lesson for everyone.
So listeners, as you go about your day, your week, remember the lessons from this game. Resilience matters. Preparation is key. And sometimes those unexpected players, they make the biggest impact.
And never underestimate a good three-pointer.
That's right. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep...